Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 1987 anime Wicked City. Now this is actually a request for a good friend of mine named Jonathan, who is also a longtime subscriber, and he sent me this DVD a while back and he wanted to hear my thoughts on the film. And I thought it was okay. I wasn't really into this one. I wouldn't say that I loved Wicked City, but I did find it to be a interesting and memorable film in some aspects, but in other aspects it wasn't really. It was just one of those films for me that ultimately I found to be average, found it to be an adequate anime, and there are elements to it that are awesome. It has some amazing aspects to it, and it's some amazing animation. But some of the story aspects, some of the characters, I personally felt did not really work as well as they could have. And overall, it's one of those films where I liked what I saw, but I didn't love the entirety of it. It's one of those films where some things really click, but other things miss the mark. But that's just me personally. So it's directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri. I probably butchered his last name and his first name. I apologize. And he had directed the short The Running Man, which I remember seeing on an old VHS of MTV's Liquid Television. Um, and it's one of the more iconic, well known anime shorts. And this was his first feature film that he directed and was responsible for the entire thing. He had worked on other things like Lensman and some other stuff, but this was really his first really big film in terms of a directorial project. And I thought he did a phenomenal job with it. Uh, the film is definitely a standout when it comes to its visuals, the overall mood and atmosphere, which is very dark and twisted, but also has this kind of Blade Runner esque uh, look to the setting of the film, and I believe that's on purpose. So it's kind of this sci-fi horror noir kind of thing, which I think definitely works. Uh, the animation also has some really great uh, energy to it. It's very energetic. It's not lifeless in any way. I also felt his direction was quite gymnastic, and I decided to use that term because there's a review of this film that uses that term, and I think it's just a great term. It's a great way to describe the direction for this film. It is very gymnastic. It's very acrobatic in the way that the camera moves around, and that's I gotta give all the kudos in the world to the director for really handling all that motion as well as he does. I give him a 10. I definitely give him a 10 for his direction and the gymnastics that are displayed on the screen. Now, despite the fact that I do think that it's a really well animated film, especially when it comes to the action sequences or the sequences with the mutants or the demons or the monsters. I think they're supposed to be demons, but they really honestly come across more as monstrous or mutants in their design. It's called Wicked City, but it honestly is more Weird City because it doesn't really have any of your traditional demonic vibes or like hellish landscapes. It doesn't really remind you of that kind of stuff. But then again, I think in Japanese culture, from what I've read and from a lot of the other anime that I've seen that involve this kind of stuff, their idea of what demons are is very different than what the Western idea of a demon is, with the horns and something straight out of the Doom video game. So the shapeshifters and all of that definitely does tie into what their view of a demon is. And it's a really cool looking film when it comes to the aesthetic, as well as the design of these mutants or these monsters or demons. Uh, in particular, I really like the Spider Lady. I thought it was a really great design, and I'm not alone on that because the director himself also really enjoyed how that design turned out. So, yeah, the direction is definitely one of the biggest and brightest standouts with this particular anime. The screenplay by Noro Asada, I personally felt that the characters were rather bland and uninteresting for the most part. That's really one of the biggest things that holds this film back for me is that I wasn't really into any of these characters and find them to be particularly engaging, particularly charismatic, particularly likable. The lead character, Taki, he's tolerable when he's in action, when he's punching demons in the face and shooting them with guns. But when he's given dialogue, when he's given other things to do, it's a very bland, boring kind of character, even right down to his design. Maki, I would say I like the most, but she still didn't have a whole lot of personality. Uh, but she was definitely more of an interesting character, considering that she was a member of the black world, and she decided to defect to our world and team up with Maki, who's a member of the Black Guard, which is this essentially men in black to protect the city from and a lot of other people from these demons. Really, it's like if the men in black were contracted by different highest bidders for their services. That's really honestly what this Blackguard reminds me of. So I'm really wondering whether or not the creators of Men in Black, the comic, because it was a comic before it was a movie, I'm wondering if they were familiar with the Wicked City novel or manga or the anime when they came up with the idea for Men in Black. Because the Blackguard, they wear black suits with the white shirts underneath and the black ties. They tend to use guns that shoot lasers. They fight humans who are also monsters or have hidden abilities. It's similar to Men in Black. There is a lot of Men in Black vibes, and I definitely think they work. Um, One thing that I didn't feel worked about this film, other than the characters, um, is two other things. In particular, the porn approach to a good chunk of this movie. It was just unnecessarily seedy and skeezy to me. I just wasn't really into it. I wasn't into the whole porn kind of erotica kind of thing with this particular story or this particular setting. I felt it cheapened it in some ways. I don't really feel it added much, especially not the tentacle porn stuff. That's not my thing. If it's your thing, teach their own. Everyone has their different kinks, but I just, I mean, there's a scene in this with a parasite that's deep throating Maki, and it's just gross, and I just wasn't really into that at all. And there's other stuff where Maki's getting raped in the ass by a couple other of these black, not blackguard, the because the black world individuals, and yeah, it was just like I just wasn't really into the whole porn aspect of this story. Maybe it was in the book and or the manga, and that's why it's in here too. But it was just something that didn't really appeal to me. Um, and another thing that didn't appeal to me is the humor. I thought the humor was just unnecessarily crass and lewd and just crude and not funny. In particular, there's this character named Myart who's this dirty old man. I wasn't into this character at all. I found him to be annoying and unlikable. And then on top of that, he's got all these abilities that you find out near the in the last half of the movie. He's been saving the lead character's bacon for a good chunk of the movie, but he's some pervy old asshole. I just wasn't really into that character. It wasn't likable. I could care less what happens to him. And he was a big part of the plot. He was a big part of everything. Like, there's twists that are revealed that he was behind a lot of this, and he was the one that was using the lightning or energy powers to come into play and save Maki or Taki from getting killed by members of the Black World. So, yeah, I wasn't really into that particular character. That being said, when it comes to the action, when it comes to the overall plot of there's some peace treaty that's trying to be put into place between the Black World and our world, and that I don't think is a bad construct. I think it's a nice framework for a compelling and interesting story with some interesting dynamics going on. But it just doesn't all really come together to a very satisfying whole to me. That being said, there are some genuinely amazing things about this particular film, and about how things unfold. For instance, I just love the stuff with the demons and how the different forms that they take, and I think the action sequences when they are there in the anime are excellent. I think they're thrilling, they're exciting, they're a total blast to watch. From the gunplay to the fisticuffs. In particular, there's one scene with Taki where he punches a guy in the face, and it's a really crowd-pleasing, badass moment because he punches him in the face and his eyeballs pop out, and his face gets smashed in, and it's just a really cool scene. And there's a lot of stuff like that in this particular anime, in terms of the animation, in terms of the reveal of the monstrous designs of these demonic characters. I just wish there was a more compelling story that tied it all together, and more compelling and interesting characters. So it's one of those movies where it really does work when it comes to its visuals, when it comes to the aspects of it that are more horrific or strange and surreal. That's really where the film's biggest selling points are, other than the direction by Kawajiri. The score by Osamu Soji, it was okay. It wasn't anything particularly memorable like the score for Akira, for instance, or even Paprika, but it was fine. It wasn't terrible by any means. And all the dubs that I heard were solid. I mean, the Japanese dub was good, and I thought, and from what I heard, because I went kind of back, I started out with the Japanese dub, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I went to the English dub, and I was very surprised by the streamlined dub. I thought the streamlined dub was genuinely good, if not great. And I wasn't alone. I mean, the director saw the streamlined dub, and he even said that it was one of the better English dubs that he had heard. And it is a really good English dub. It's not one of those cheap English dubs that sounds bad or detracts from the film or hurts the film in terms of its quality. It's a really solid dub. I haven't heard the UK version, which apparently has different voice actors, but that one I've heard is pretty bad. And I think that's also like a edited version of the film too. The film, it goes by at a decent enough pace. It's only 82 minutes, so it doesn't really overstay its welcome. Apparently, the director was tasked by the producers of this adaptation to only do a 30-40 minute short, but they were so impressed with what he had put together that they wanted him to do more. So he kindly obliged and tacked on some more scenes. Originally, the initial version of this started out in the airport scene and then carried over a little bit, I think, to the finale. But the director decided to add a few more scenes here and there to stretch it out to 80 minutes. Another aspect of the film I didn't feel was really that effective was the romance. I didn't really buy the love story between Taki and Maki, and it's a really crucial aspect of the overall plot. I thought they kind of pushed that a little bit too quickly. It would seem like really fast in terms of how they fell in love and so on and so forth. It seemed to me how they were. It seemed to me it was just rushed. It was very rushed. It didn't feel very natural. It didn't help either that I didn't really feel that they had that much chemistry. But then again, it's kind of a hard thing to do in anime is to have like these characters have chemistry in a traditional sort of cinematic way, because a lot of it relies upon the voice acting and the screenwriting. That's really what it relies upon, the writing. And I didn't feel the writing for this was particularly amazing, or but I also didn't think it was egregious or anything. I just didn't think it was great. So that probably would have helped the dynamic between the two feel stronger if things were kind of fleshed out more or strengthened in that regard. It's one of those films where it definitely does leave a mark because of its visuals and because of its style and its atmosphere, but it doesn't dig as deep as it could. And that being said, I do recommend it, especially if it sounds interesting to you. If you like weird, trippy animation, it's definitely worth at least one watch. And I'm glad I have it because it definitely does have some things about it that I did enjoy. I like the visuals and I like some of the gore and some of the action and the violence in it and the designs. Not a fan of the porn stuff. I don't like my art at all as a character. The other characters the other two characters are pretty bland for me. Anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts on Wicked City. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.